Hello, y'all. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm Jonathan, a presidential ambassador at Colorado State University. I'm here today with Taylor Heap, a fellow PA, and with three incredible panelists to discuss taking the next big step, landing a job, and finding purposeful work. Gavon Marnich is the Senior Talent Management Partner at Tolmar. Elizabeth Morgan is an active channels specialist at Google and a 2017 business graduate. And Annika Yappert serves as recruiting and talent acquisition specialist for University Advancement at CSU and is a 2019 business and natural sciences graduate. Ladies, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us.
The Landing a Job session today rounds out our spring series of live interviews that we are producing with our alumni and friends of the university in a variety of fields. We hope folks tuning in are able to use these informational interview videos as learning tools when deciding on their desired career path or when learning about a new industry. We also invite any questions that you have for our panelists to be shared in the chat, and we'll try to get to as many as possible today.
Many of questions.
Sorry. Many of our attendees are CSU Alumni Association members, and thank you so much for your membership. It makes events like these possible. And to learn more about membership and to explore all that the Alumni Association has to offer, download our mobile app. The CSU Alumni Association has many virtual events coming up, as well as many past event recordings available to you. I'll include links in the comments to see our events calendar and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And now, we are excited to hear from today's panelists, Gavon, Elizabeth, and Annika. Another huge thank you for joining us today. Will each of you take a minute or two to share a bit about your background and your current organization? And
Sure.
Annika, perfect.
I can go.
I think
I guess anyone can jump in.
Yeah, I'll go for it. My name is Elizabeth Morgan. I graduated from Colorado State University in 2017. I was a part of the College of Business, got my degree in Human Resource Management, Organ Innovation Management, then got an entrepreneurship certification. So I was very busy, had a lot of fun doing that. Once I graduated, I moved to the San Francisco Bay Area. I hopped in immediately on the HR team at a startup. Was very quickly sourced on LinkedIn and moved on to Google's recruiting team. And actually, a fun little update from the introduction, I actually now sit at a company called iSIMS. I'm actually their senior social media program manager. So I've been having a lot of fun just giving tips with folks on LinkedIn about how to brand themselves, how to show up to employers, and how to just have a rockin' LinkedIn profile to meet cool people.
very cool. I could use some tips probably, but
I think I could. You probably all could.
yeah, thanks. Thanks for everyone who put this on, and thanks for the participants. I hope there's a lot of valuable information you take away from today. So Gavon Marnich, I'm with Tolmar. Tolmar's a pharmaceutical company located in northern Colorado with roots that go back to like the early 90s. But we've been Tolmar in its current form since 2006. We've had a long relationship with CSU. Really proud of that. I've been involved with CSU since my early days at Amgen. I spent about 16 years of my initial HR career there. I call it, Amgen U for me, and non-traditional student. But I have, my experience as far as HR goes back a long ways. I'm not shy to say that I have about 30 plus years. When I joined Amgen, it was about 2,000 people. When I left, it was 20,000 people. So growing from a very early kind of startup phase to a pretty mature organization was a once in a lifetime opportunity that I cherish. And to be able to parlay that experience and at working at Tolmar, we're about 800 people, and we've do everything from research development all the way to the commercialization of several of our drug products, including a prostate cancer drug called Eligard. So I'm happy to be here and happy to answer questions.
That's great. All right, I will go next. My name is Annika Yappert, and I actually work for University Advancement, which the Alumni Association at Colorado State University falls under. So I recruit for the Division of University Advancement at CSU, so hoping to hire for all of our positions, including the Alumni Association positions as well. So I'm excited to be a part of this event. I'm a CSU grad. I also graduated from the College of Business with a degree in HR. And then I also got a degree from the College of Natural Sciences in psychology. So I'm a proud CSU alum. I graduated in 2019, and so it's been 2 years since I've been in my role. It feels like I don't know, I graduated yesterday, but I really enjoyed the work that I've been doing for CSU and love talking to people about just careers and what's next for them, and helping them find, something to do that they love. So I'm looking forward to this today.
Awesome. Well, yeah, thank you all so much. So the first question that we have is, in each of your respective positions, what have you found to be the most rewarding part of it? And also, what have you found to be the most challenging aspect as well? And we can start, I guess, with Annika, since you went last. So
Sure. Yeah, I'll kick things off. As far as what's most rewarding, one of the things that I love so much about my role is that I get to be still on a college campus. I think there's just this unique energy when you're on a college campus and getting to interact with students and just all of the research that's happening. There's so many exciting things to be a part of, and I find that really rewarding. And also just the role that I'm in, being able to help people, as a recruiter, find positions that speak to them and align with their passions and are a really good fit. I think that's, one of the benefits of being in a role, especially when you're recruiting internally, is you get to really find the best position for someone and for the organization. I think as far as challenges, higher ed does move a bit slower than I think things out in the private sector, and there's bureaucracy, but there's just sometimes more structure and a little bit of red tape that you need to be creative and find ways to think out of the box and still move things forward. So that's been an exciting challenge. I think, with those types of things, it gives you the opportunity to be innovative and try new things. But that's definitely been something that, we just work with on a day-to-day basis and figure out how to move things forward. So that's what I would say.
I'll go. So, one with the tons of experience here, I have to say that I've done a lot of different roles in HR, but recruiting is really number one. I've always seen it as a win-win-win. I mean, if you can recall, for most of us, we've all been hired to do something, at least probably by this point, whether it's your first job in retail, your first job doing, something in the food industry. I was, cleaning offices when I was 15 years old. I mean, I think there's a lot of love about that excitement that you get. Oh, my first paid position, my first job. And that just never left me. I've loved it, throughout, and know that feeling myself, but I also love how others may feel about it as well. And connecting someone with, their, dream job, what they're aspiring to do, and want to, the company they want to be with, and then marrying that up with the company and their needs. And, it's just a wonderful experience every time. I love it. And challenge, I would just say that because so much of my job right now is focused on recruiting, talent acquisition, and we've got like 70 positions open. It's always a challenge to find good talent. We sometimes there's an abundance of talent in certain jobs, and we wish we could hire everybody, but we can't. And then there's other jobs where we just have a lot of openings and not a lot of candidates. So the job market, even during COVID, it was a little bit challenging, and it still continues to be challenging, and I'm seeing it maybe tighten up a little bit. So that's probably the biggest challenge about my role.
Yeah, I can go next. I have only been in my new role about a week now. So I can say, I'm having a really fun time ramping up and learning. It's a position that I didn't exactly see myself pivoting into when I was graduating from CSU. I had planned on being HR very long term, but I've always really had a passion for marketing. And this role, I think companies are starting to realize the benefit of having people strategically run their social media pages. I've been reading articles talking about how a few years ago, if you were running social media, you were probably an intern. There wasn't a lot of time and strategy put into it. We've realized, especially with the global pandemic, that now more than ever, it's really important to have a brand. So I am learning, I've developed my own brand on LinkedIn. I have a lot of fun on there, spending time with people, trying to help them kind of determine how they want to come across on social media so that they can attract employers. So I guess I could say that what's been exciting and what I've loved has also been challenging, which is understanding how corporations are marketing themselves, how you can give a voice to a company, how you can get people excited about what you're doing and what you're up to. So having a lot of fun. I can't wait to answer your questions, but yeah, I am still 1 week in to the new position. So we'll share as much as I can.
Nice.
Awesome. That's great. Thank you.
Yes, thank you all for sharing that. I know it can be especially difficult to navigate challenges and successes alone. So I really appreciate you all sharing those experiences and kind of moving forward with that. Is there any encouragement or advice you'd like to offer our students and alumni as they pursue their careers? And Gavon, if you would like to start off.
Yeah, a wealth of experience recruiting. So, I just, like I said, have a fondness for it. But, just looking at people who started their careers, I mean, I've watched careers grow from college graduate to, a technician to the vice president of quality, so I've been there throughout and been able to witness and really see the true growth of people, being around a long time. So that's one of the benefits I have now. But I would say starting out, probably to Elizabeth's point, she's all about, kind of focus on the marketing piece. And that is, a lot of companies could do a lot better. I mean, I know Tolmar, we're probably still in our infancy about, being really savvy with social media, but I would say that, the first thing that you use right now anyway, until we, evolve, is your resume. Your resume is a big marketing piece for you. And I can't tell you how many resumes I get where someone's just said resume 2021 or, my resume or, and that's a place where you should be putting your name, make it, who you are. It's the first thing I'm going to see as far as your name. Click on it, read your resume. So there's just a real early stage kind of piece that recruiting and job searching is that there is a marketing component to it. And you really got to, know yourself, know thyself, know what you want, have some preferences. You don't want to, make it too narrow, but at the same time, if someone says, well, why this job? You can say, this is why. And it's not just well, I threw my resume in the hat and didn't realize you were going to call me, so it's just really being purposeful, being targeted, but keep your options open, and network. Some people have the hardest time with networking because they feel like I'm asking people to do me favors and it's just a two-way street. The longer, like me, you've been around, I've been around to help people and I've been around to get help. And it's just it's always a two-way street and it's always a benefit. You're getting benefited at a particular time when later on you're going to benefit somebody else. Just know that. It's just, pay it forward. It's always happening as far as networking, and it's not, you shouldn't be shy about it. And, LinkedIn, number one, is a great tool for that. So, but market your name, what you've done, your experience, and network that.
I love that. I'd love to go next. I love everything that Gavon shared. I think it's very challenging right now. You can't go to a career fair. Everything is online. So you really have to show up online. So that being said, I know that I'm kind of LinkedIn Liz, you could say. I keep echoing the LinkedIn, the phrase, but You are missing out on an opportunity if you don't have a profile picture that's a headshot of you, not with a family member, not holding a sandwich, but a nice professional smiling photo of yourself, a headline. But then the area that I see that people underutilize the most is their skill section on LinkedIn. So when recruiters are trying to source you for a role, LinkedIn pulls a bunch of profiles that have all the skill sets that align with the job description, the things that the recruiters are putting in. We need someone who has cake baking experience, who has data analysis skills, and pets dogs in their free time. So they're going to add all of those specific keywords. I don't know what kind of person. I think I want that job. Maybe,
Yeah.
but
Sign me up.
yeah. So they're going to put those keywords into the LinkedIn recruiter realm, and it's going to populate thousands of profiles who have those skill sets. It's also going to populate profiles of people who respond to LinkedIn messages quickly. And it's going to populate people who are involved on the platform and have what's called an all-star profile. Those are your jobs right there. So I would recommend after this session, Googling the term LinkedIn All-Star. And there's generally 5 or 6 terms that come with that. You know, I mentioned the profile picture, I mentioned the skill set. Have a heading, just like do what you said. I was really strategic about what skill sets I had on my LinkedIn profile. And recruiters from each of those companies reach out to me and said, we have a position, we think you're great for it. So that can be you too. Just put a couple hours a week into it.
Elizabeth, thank you so much for sharing that, because I think a lot of people don't necessarily understand how recruiters use LinkedIn. Like there are some assumptions about how the site works, but hearing, firsthand what they're really looking for, I think is so valuable for folks. I guess since we've now talked about sort of getting your foot in the door, your resume, maybe you're being noticed on LinkedIn or your other, through your brand and your other profiles. I'll just talk a little bit about the interview and then just some of those other pieces that I think are helpful. A lot of times that's where I see people falter. They might have a really stellar resume. They're being interviewed for the position, and then they really struggle to craft the story about why they're a good fit for this role. And I think people feel like either you're fantastic at interviewing or you're just not. And I don't know, people are born that way, but it really is a skill that you can develop and get better at. And oftentimes it's a skill that may be unrelated to the position that you're doing. And so knowing how to interview effectively and how to really position yourself in an interview so that they can see that you're the best fit for the role is something that I'd recommend. So whether it's practicing with a friend or a family member or videotaping yourself, answering interview questions and just seeing where are some of the places that you're really strong, maybe what are some of the habits that you have, or just the places where you're struggling a little bit, I think is something that I recommend to everyone, because that really does help you shine once you've kind of gotten in with the company. And then I think just some other things, thinking about what I wish I'd known, or even things that I still think to myself. I feel like you want to be intentional about your job search and knowing what you want to do. And I think it's okay if you don't know exactly what you want to do. And, I had so much anxiety as I was graduating and figuring out what my next step was. And I'm still trying to tell myself, I don't know where I'll end up in 5 to 10 years or 15 years from now. But as long as I'm intentional and, making choices that I'm excited about and that I think will help me learn and grow is something to keep in mind. And I think the networking piece is something that I've always, when you hear networking, it can be very scary. And it's, you're in this large group of people and you have to go up and talk to someone you don't know. But I think networking is just building relationships. So keep in touch with your previous colleagues, your previous supervisors, continue to build those relationships. And then, as Elizabeth said, you don't know where those will take you. And maybe in 10 years, you'll be having a conversation with someone and they'll have an opportunity for you.
That's great. Yeah, thank you so much. And I think too, Annika, like what you said with, telling your story, I think that's something that I've really appreciated about CSU even, is just that we're really good about helping each other tell our own stories, whether that be as students or, whether that be about our time at CSU already. So that was a really great piece. Thank you so much. All right, so we have collected a handful of questions from those who registered for today's event. And we ask that you continue to keep sending in those questions in the comment section. And so we'll turn to the first one of those. So one of our recent grads wondered, what is the best way to approach explaining a large gap in your resume?
I love that.
Be honest.
Yeah, when I was working at Google up until a week ago, I screened thousands of resumes. It was my job. It was my job to look through as many resumes as possible to determine if a candidate was qualified for this role. If they weren't, could they be qualified for any position at Google, and then move them forward accordingly, or let them know that we wouldn't be moving forward. So in my time, I have seen people really eloquently define that time and say, I had one that really stuck out. It was someone said, I have a special needs child and I have been a program manager for the last 10 years to help them with their developmental skills. You know, they have achieved so much because I have taken time off of work. They are now able to do these things that the doctor never said they'd be able to do. You know, I volunteer at these events. You know, these are all the ways I'm known in my community. I've realized that I have a passion for these specific skills. So, you know, that's how it aligns with this position that I'm applying to. So I think it really, you have been doing more in your gap than watching Netflix and eating food. What is it that you've been doing? And how can you apply to positions that are maybe looking for experience that's similar to that? And then when you share what you've had going on, whether it's health issues, you've been caring for a family member, who knows what it is, and share as little or as much as you're comfortable sharing. But we have gotten all of the above on resumes. And it truly is just a matter of, okay, yes, that happened, but what are you doing now? And how are you utilizing the skills that you gained to make an impact for us?
I couldn't say it any better. I mean, you know, if you traveled Europe for 6 months, you know, talk about that experience. You know, it was, I'm sure, you know, beneficial and, you know, tying into you as an individual and your experience and what's you're going to carry with you to the next big thing. And so don't shy away from it. You know, you don't have to tell, you know, write a book, just brief acknowledgement of the time and what, you know, how it was spent, you know, briefly.
Yeah, I really don't have much to add there. I think it's just, you'll see this recurring theme of transferable skills, right? How do you take the experience that you do have and translate it to a job, whether it was previous work experience or those things that Elizabeth just talked about, whatever it was that you were doing in your gap. And really, again, just telling that story and making them see how you'll be valuable to the organization and what you can do for them.
That's wonderful. Thank you all for sharing that. I think it is so critical to be able to communicate how we're using our time to grow, especially in positions or different involvement that might not show up on a resume. I know that I've experienced that a lot through COVID and through the pandemic. And so I know that a lot of other people will also really appreciate that advice. So thanks for sharing that. The next question that we have received and want to talk about is, when does one know it's time to move on to the next position? I guess, Elizabeth, if you want to touch on that, considering you just started a brand new one.
I'd love to. And I also don't want to monopolize. I'll start out by saying that I had a really great time at Google. It was a wonderful company. A few key things have helped me realize that it's time for me to move on to something new, whether it's within the company or, in my case, so far in my career, it's been moving to a new company. I think if you're feeling tired with the work that you're doing, and even if you add on projects and you're trying to take on more things, if you feel like you've reached a point where you can't necessarily grow anymore in that role, I think it's time to take a second look. Another situation that I know many people are currently experiencing right now is your relationship with your manager. Do you have a healthy relationship with the person that you're reporting to? Are they advocating for you? Do you feel like you're able to be your best self and partner with them on things? If not, I think potentially talking with your company's HR team to determine if maybe a manager change might be in effect, or maybe some sort of mediation session so that the two of you can really help and advocate each other. But ultimately, if you're feeling like you can't grow and or you're feeling like you just achieved what you can in this position, then it could be time to look for something new. And I think it's not a bad negative thing to say, I have new skill sets that maybe this company isn't prioritizing, or I have interests and we just don't have any positions here, but there's positions externally. Or even as simple as a primary factor for me was I have really become accustomed to the remote lifestyle, and it's something that I'd like to continue. So, whatever it might be, there's a lot of opportunities out there, and I think it's okay to say goodbye when something new comes along.
Yeah, I would completely agree with that. I think you do have to prioritize your own career and your own growth and your own opportunities. And so if that means that for whatever reason, whether it's that maybe you just aren't enjoying your job anymore, or there's something that offers, something new for you to learn and grow, then, that's definitely something to take into consideration. There's so many factors, and it's what do you value, right? Elizabeth might value working remotely and having that flexibility. Someone else might value, maybe there's, higher salary and they're looking to make that growth in their career. Maybe there's a position that's going to offer them the opportunity to spend more time with their family. Like, those are all valid reasons. Whatever it is that is driving you to potentially consider a new job, I think is a valid reason. So I think as long as it's something that you're excited about, and you are being intentional about the choices that you're making, but maybe you're not entirely sure where it will lead, I think that's something worth at least exploring and then going from there. But Gavon, what do you think?
I think that's excellent points. And the only thing else I would add is that I think it's always better to run to something than run away from something. So be excited about what you want to do, whether it's within an organization somewhere else, or if it's outside the organization.
That's a great thought too, right? I think, right, they always say it's easier to find a job while you have a job. So, always kind of be just testing the market and seeing what's out there. Be open to speaking, with recruiters if new opportunities come up. I'm sure, Elizabeth, right, that's kind of how you found your new role, is you probably said, sure, yeah, I'm happy to learn a bit more. And now,
yep, that's exactly what happened. I also think that it's a really challenging feeling to experience, because you don't have the same motivations and goals and experiences as other people. So what might be a primary reason for you to say goodbye might not make sense to other people. So just keep track of your priorities and where you want to go. And it is a very personal, hard decision to make at times, but just because it's different than someone else's experience or their own ideas doesn't make it wrong.
Great. All right. So we have kind of a longer question here, but we have some questions that have been coming up regarding age in the workplace. So the first one was regarding entering a workforce as an older professional. And so do you have any advice that you might be able to offer on that? And then also, discussing, like we were just talking about, with gaps in your resume, maybe you've taken, a couple years to even maybe a couple decades away from the workforce, and now you're trying to come back with these skills. And so how do you try to reflect those best on your resume and during your interview?
I would, I'll start off just by saying that when it comes to the age piece, that, if you're reluctant, whatever goes on your resume should just be relevant to your targeted, career choices and what you want to do, whether it's just, adding on to what you've already done and just take your strengths and build, continue to build, but bring them to a new job or whatever it is. The experience that you have is really valuable. And when I saw this question, or heard about these questions before about ageism, I mean, my mom, talks about ageism and she's still working. But at the same time, I think you have to align with the right companies, the companies that appreciate that experience. If for some reason you're running up against, the door isn't opening, I often would question whether or not that's a culture that's going to really value you. There's definitely companies, Tolmar being one of them, where we embrace that, collective, person that comes to Tolmar and, the one that has a lot of experience. And so I rejoined Tolmar in 2019. I'm not young, but I have to say that, I want to first acknowledge ageism exists. And if those doors aren't opening, then it's probably not the right place for you to be knocking, and find one that opens the door for you, because that'll probably be a better culture, better fit.
Elizabeth, do you want to go next?
Yeah, I was hoping that you could clarify the first part of the question once more. I loved what Gavon had to say, but I want to make sure that I touch on it on the actual answer.
Yeah, so just thinking about people that might be worried about coming back to the workplace after they've taken a couple years to even a couple decades leave, and so I guess just like, what advice do you have for those people that might be wondering about how their age would affect how they're viewed in applications, but then also how do they continue to put those skills that they were using very heavily up to 30 years ago, how do they continue to put those on their resumes and in their profiles?
Yeah, I truly do believe that every experience that you've had up to this point gives you a really great, unique perspective. And if the company isn't noticing and appreciating that, then exactly like what Gavon said, it's not the right place for you. You're not going to shine. You're not going to be able to get what you want out of your career. I think ultimately what's really challenging about this is being honest with yourself and realizing that you might not have the skill set that you need. A lot has changed in the past decade. So if you don't have the skill sets that the industry needs you to have, how can you get those skill sets? Are there certifications you can pursue? It's okay to go back and get an internship, or even do volunteer work within your community, maybe in a remote situation. You can get creative so that you can show that you have the skills. If it's been a while and maybe the application that you were once advanced in has completely changed, but it has the same title, right? So I would really try and keep in mind that the experience that I've had is that it's not as much how long you've been away or how old you are. And I know that there are some unfortunate circumstances where discrimination is happening, but for the most part, I think that people are mostly concerned with, are you able to do the job? So how can you prove that you can do the job, and just push that forward?
Absolutely. Yeah, I love everything Elizabeth and Gavon said. I think the only thing that maybe I would add is, as Gavon said, right, look for companies that value that. There are organizations that offer, for example, right, returnships. So internships for folks that are re-entering the workforce. So maybe you look for a career path where that's a viable option. So I think, just as Elizabeth said, right, being creative about how you make sure that you get those skill sets, that you've done your research, that you understand what are the current trends in the industry that you're trying to enter. And maybe it means that the first opportunity that you take isn't necessarily, right, the job that you want to do, I don't know, until you retire, but maybe that's your opportunity to get in, to get that education, to sharpen your skill sets. And then after that, you're able to look for the position that really is your next opportunity.
Yeah, I would also add that was very good, Annika. And I also would add the Larimer County Workforce Center is a great place for your kind of next career, stage, next third, fourth career, whatever it is. We've hired interns who have gone back to school, gotten educations later in life, retooled, and wanted to come rejoin and do something else. And So they provide those opportunities, and usually with a stipend. So the companies, are very willing to try people in these internship roles.
Wonderful. Thank you all so much for sharing that. I think the perspective that you all bring is really crucial, and it's really helpful hearing that even now as I'm still a student, but I loved hearing about all of those experiences. So thanks for sharing those. And then kind of shifting, obviously, our whole lives seem to have revolved around COVID in the last year, rightfully so, just because it has played a really big impact on professional working environments and jobs, and impacts how that looks. And so another question that we received around COVID and references is, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, my references have moved on to other areas, either professionally or at different firms, and there is no way to contact them. How should someone navigate this? And do you have any tips that you might offer?
I mean, I guess I can start. Assuming that obviously you've sort of exhausted all of your avenues to contact these people through social media or whatever that might be. I think you have a couple of options, right? It depends on what I think the organization is using your references for. Sometimes it's as simple as an employment verification. I know at CSU, references are used in a different way, right? Where we're actually calling those folks and spending some time talking to them. So those look very different in what you might need. But even for us, right? We would love to hear from you about what is your situation? Why don't you have those references? Who are some other folks that we can talk to? Maybe it's previous clients. Maybe it's your colleagues. Maybe it was, if you're just graduating and you worked with your peers on a project in school, maybe they could serve as a reference. Even if you're looking at coaches or volunteer leads or someone that you worked with in another organization, right? You have lots of options, even if you can't necessarily go back to your previous supervisor. So I would say to start there, and then I'll let Elizabeth and Gavon jump in if they have some other thoughts.
I love that. I thought that was a great answer.
Yeah.
I'd also share that I'm kind of curious. I know we can't, pull the person out specifically, but if the only reason you're not wanting to contact your reference is because they've changed industries, what they're doing in their own path, I don't see how that would impact their reference for you. We don't need someone, who has changed careers. That doesn't make them any less able to be a good referral for you. So I do think it's important to try to not burn bridges when you leave a company, and try to have people that you can keep in touch with, whether it's on LinkedIn just once a year. You never know when life's going to change and you're going to need a job. And it's definitely awkward to notice that the last time that you talked to a person was asking them 3 years ago to be a reference for you. So, I try and keep a list of people that I just really care about. Whether it's reference or even just friendship, kind of my holiday card, send list. And those are the people that I try and keep in my life. I give extra love, care, and attention to. I send them my earrings, etc. And, when I message them, it's not out of the blue. And they say, heck yeah, I can talk about how nice it was to hear from you just a few months ago, and, how proud I am of blah, blah, blah. So I do think that it's important to be intentional when you network. And how you keep in touch with people, so that the situation the next time around doesn't happen, because it's definitely an awkward and rough spot to be in.
Yeah, I can't add anything better than that. I mean, Annika and Elizabeth, you hit it on the head. And, I don't send jewelry to my network, but I would say that, anything, as far as just keeping in touch and like I said, you just never know when they might ask you for a favor. So, it's a two-way street, and just to continue that relationship, not just when you need it.
I will share that I have a little Etsy shop, and I make handmade earrings. If that came out kind of weird, like, why are you sending people jewelry?
I'm like, that's so cool. I have to come up with something.
That's great. All right. So yeah, a final question that we have from those who registered today. was what websites do you recommend for job searching outside of LinkedIn, Indeed, Glassdoor, etc.? So I know we've hit really hard on LinkedIn today. So what other sources do you use?
I personally sign up for LinkedIn job alerts. LinkedIn is the best place to be. If you can really curate yourself, if you can put yourself as open to work as, as comfortably as you're willing to do it. There's, two options for you to filter as a job seeker. You can either do it just for recruiters, or you can do it so that everyone sees you're looking for a job. And that's when you get that fancy green open to work on your profile. I recommend just being as detailed as possible for what types of jobs you're looking for and what locations, because most companies are on that platform. I say aside from that, I know people who have had great success, quite honestly, talking with the people they care about, their next door neighbors, their best friends, their parents. If you can reach out to the people who can advocate for you the most effectively, you never know when dad has a job opening that he just hasn't thought of you for, or dad's best friend is doing insert blank here and you will be perfect for it. So I know we said we talked a lot about LinkedIn and then I continued talking about it, but to end with actually answering the question, utilize the people who care about you the most, who might be able to help you find something, and potentially be willing to try something a little new if you're feeling a little exhausted in your search. It's okay to not be on a very specific path that you had set in place for yourself. When I graduated, I had a very specific idea in my mind of what success looked like, what I needed to do, how I needed to do it. I have broken down those barriers. I have gotten further in my career than I ever thought I could. And it's simply because I've said, this looks interesting. I think I'm going to do something new and have fun and learn from it.
Nice. Yeah, I would say just LinkedIn. It's just so much feels like a one-stop shop where you can learn about the company, learn culture. I mean, some companies are really active on LinkedIn. Tomar, not so much yet, but we're looking into it to add more content. So a lot of company controlled content, but then there's employees who work for the company. You can search them. You can there's just so many different ways you can see who works there. Or you might be surprised that somebody works there that is a second connection, and you could easily become a first connection to that person and really have a way of learning more about the company and maybe network enough to maybe even become a referral. So many companies offer referrals for hires, and so networking, as Elizabeth was saying, is I think a great one. I just love the neighbor thing. You're like, oh, my neighbor's daughter's graduating from college, she's looking for a lab position, can you help out? Do you have anything, stuff like that?
No, I completely agree. It really is amazing to me when you're doing something completely right. You're with friends or you're meeting some new people and you find out what they do. And suddenly it's like, oh, they're in this position at this company, right? Like I, want to continue having that conversation. So I think always being open and just being interested in what other people do. People love to talk about their work. So, related as we continue to talk about LinkedIn, but one of the things that, one of the tools that I've found helpful is you can go and search, right? If you look up CSU on LinkedIn, you can search alumni from CSU, and so you can see what are maybe some of the people in my class or people that have graduated before me. Where are they working? What companies are they at? And then, maybe if you have a second connection or there's a way that you can connect with those folks. I have found that especially CSU alum are so willing to talk to fellow Rands and to give them advice. Sure, Elizabeth is a great example, right? So having those conversations, connecting with your peers in the Alumni Association, for example, you might be surprised at what comes of that as opposed to just applying for jobs as they become available. Because while that's a very valid way to find jobs, a lot of times it is from those direct referrals or just having that connection.
I love that. I completely agree. It's how I got my first job out of college, just networking with people who went to CSU. And one thing that I will say is for those of you who are just here, maybe you aren't currently in a position to be searching for a job, I recommend setting a goal to reach out to 3 or 4 CSU alumni a week and just say, hey, not job searching, just wanted to say, go Rams, and you have a background I'm passionate about. I'd love to connect and, get to know you further, because that will go so much further than, hey, we both worked at CSU. Can you refer me to your company because I'm looking for a job? It doesn't come off as well. So I have a whole bunch of my own thoughts about networking and how you can strategically do it so people don't automatically go, oh, I'm not going to respond. But I definitely think that if you can start getting to know people, crafting your own idea of what success looks like to you, what type of job you'd want to work in, what types of skills you'd want to utilize, and start talking to people about it and hearing their story. And kind of as Anika was talking about, like getting their perspective, I think that it will really set you up for success. It did for me. It's the reason why I haven't actually applied to any company that I've worked with. All of it's come through LinkedIn reaching out. So, yeah.
Well done.
Thanks.
Wonderful. Well, thanks for sharing all of that. And I think it is so critical to be able to network yourself and just find those connections in any way that you can. So I guess moving on to our next one, I'm going to try to combine a few questions that we've gotten just so we can make sure that we answer as many people's questions as possible with the little bit of time we have left. So the first part is, what recommendations do you all have on how to interview for personality fit? And then a question from the chat from Lisa, specifically with Zoom interviews and virtual interview formats, how do you keep people engaged, and how can you make sure that you can still reach out, find those personality fits, and make sure that the interview still goes smoothly, because it can be a little tough to read people's energy or whatnot over a computer screen.
I was interviewing 3 weeks ago, and I'd love to share my experience of pandemic interviewing. I think to start off, personality interviews can start off really well if you have the basics good to go right from the beginning. So I guess I'll share kind of standard tips I recommend. I would log in 5 minutes prior and just make sure that you can hear yourself, that your camera's set up, that your background, like that your face is looking healthy, that you are looking clean, that your environment behind you, if you have a bed behind you, that you made your bed. If there's a lot of loud background noises, ask your roommates or your family if you can just have 30 minutes for quiet. So, kind of that side thing, if you're getting distracted, if you look nervous, if you look stressed, it comes through on the camera. Another thing is, sometimes I have to pretend this eye that I'm staring into right now is not a human being. And I'm gravitating. I want to look at Gay Vaughn because I love her smiling face right now. But like when I'm looking at her, it does not look as appealing as if I'm looking at you. So I have to actually pretend in my mind that this is the interviewer. So really do your best, whether it's putting a little smiley face next to the camera on your laptop or your computer, smile, look at them. As far as the actual components of it, for me, I really try and make sure I review the job description. I look at all the minimum qualifications and the preferred qualifications, and I write down in a little notebook 2 or 3 stories I have for each of those bullet points that proves why I'm qualified for the role, what my story was in the past, what I went through, how I went through it, what happened because of it. And when you're able to storytell about your own experiences, that is such a great, just because you've already prepared and you have a background that aligns with the company, that's a personality fit.
Yeah.
I love to hear. Yeah, go for it, Gavon.
No, I would say that's excellent. Many companies like Tomar use very varying degrees of kind of interviewing structures. Behavioral interviewing, for example, is so much about your experience. Tell me about a time when you didn't get along with a coworker and how did it go? Or, you're going to be asked those kinds of questions likely and at some point, and really understanding kind of the STAR system and, understanding that situation or task. You're talking about the action and you're talking about kind of what the result was. And it's like, it is a little bit of storytelling, but it's, about you, and you should, have some familiarity with all that. And, you can't be prepared for every question, but, it's oftentimes that you're going to get questions about conflict. You're going to get questions about how you overcame a challenge, how you, were successful at something. So, really, we're very much competency based and driven. A personality fit is, to me, just okay, do they collaborate well with people? It's based really more foundationally on competencies. And do they align with our values? Do our values align with you as a job seeker? I think that's what you're looking for too when you're searching for kind of the fit piece.
Absolutely. I think those are such great tips. I think especially Elizabeth, what you touched on, writing those stories. I think there's a lot of panic when you go into this interview of, I have no idea what they're going to ask. I'm not going to be able to answer the questions. But if you do sit down with that job description and you look at the required and preferred qualifications and you see communication, they're probably going to ask you a question related to that. And you can Google, interview questions related to communication and practice. And so I think those are such good pieces of advice that, if you've done the time, you've spent the time to prepare for your interview, you will feel so much more confident when you go in. And then when you get nervous, you'll have that preparation to fall back on, because most people do get nervous interviewing. So I guess that is all that I would add there. But yeah.
I would also share, companies really like to brag about things that they're doing, processes that they've gotten involved in, how they're giving back to the community. And you can find it, they'll make a LinkedIn post or they'll have it on their website, ERG groups that they founded, different ways they're giving back. And if any of those things align with something you've done in the past or something you want to get involved in, or just it excites you, maybe they're working on helping individuals who have been incarcerated and you have a family member who's had a tough time getting back on their feet, so you can really resonate with that, or whatever it might be. How can you connect your own personal situation with things that the company has prioritized and tell them that you appreciate it, or maybe share that you're not seeing a lot of it and you would love to have an impact in that way? Those are great ways too to show that you're driven and excited and you want to be involved in something larger than yourself.
That's great. So then I guess a question with that. So obviously, storytelling happens whenever you're just having a conversation. So how do you tell those stories and promote those skills and those values that you bring to a team? How do you put those on an application or on a resume, or even your profile, so that, somebody can automatically say like, oh, I know that Elizabeth has this really deep connection to this part of our story or our industry or our company. How do you recommend putting those, and also balancing soft skills and hard skills on a resume? And anybody can take that.
Everyone's different. All recruiters are different. You can ask 5 recruiters, you'll get maybe 5 different answers. But I will say that I'm a hard skill searcher. I mean, I look at, experiences that people have had. I look at the skills that they feel like they've developed and at varying degrees, associations they've been involved in, the ways that they have, pursued their passions in a career. But soft skills, I really say for the interview process, whether it's having a phone call or a Zoom WebEx call. So it's an opportunity to really it's some of those soft skills are a little bit tougher to you can put anything on a resume per se. So I'm just more of a experience. I want to go through an experience with someone to really be able to evaluate and kind of understand them.
Yeah, on LinkedIn, it really is. If you don't have the skills for the job, the recruiters aren't going to find you because your profile, like I mentioned before, it's not going to show up in that list. So it really is important that you show off right away that you have the skills and maybe share the impact that you've gained with those skills. If we're looking for someone who has experience with employer branding, like what types of work did they put out? How many people saw it? What were the engagement statistics? All of this is top of mind for me right now, but there's examples of success metrics for every company, for every position, and you can just do a quick Google search for the position title you're interested in and what success metrics look like for something in that role. And you can add words like that to your own LinkedIn profile to get flagged. Another thing I recommend, there's this resource that I like to utilize called ONET, ONET star. I don't remember if it's a .org or how it ends. Maybe we can help out in the chat. But you can also just do a quick Google search, ONET star. And if you type up the positions that you're interested in, a lot of companies utilize this site because this site shares different names the position might have, qualifications that you need to be involved in the position, do well at it, the outlook for the job. I have spent so much free time on ONET just trying to understand what skill sets align with the skill sets that I have. And what you can do is you can take those keywords and those skill sets they recommend that you have, and you can add those to your LinkedIn profile. And that's how you can get flagged for these roles, because recruiters are utilizing the site to create job descriptions. If you're utilizing the same site to show that you have the skills, there's going to be this great partnership that emerges where they're going to say, wow, Elizabeth is perfect for this role because she has all the skill sets we're looking for.
That's great. I think the only thing I would add is just to know and understand the industry that you're applying for. I think there are some variations in what they're looking for. And so have a conversation with someone who's in that space. I know, like, just as an example, right, this is where I'm at, but in higher ed, we place a really high value on cover letters, and we have to review every single application that we receive. And so we spend a lot of time talking about those things. But if you're applying elsewhere and you submit a cover letter, they may never look at it, and they may, be looking for different things on a resume, or maybe you need to submit a federal resume. So just, know and understand what is valued in the industry and the types of organizations that you're applying for, so that you can continue to really tailor your application materials to what they're looking for. And I think that's always good advice. Is I would rather see someone spend time putting together quality application materials that really speak to the job, as opposed to sending out, 150 applications a day that don't align with the positions they're applying for.
Agreed.
Wonderful. Well, thank you all so much for sharing all of your wisdom and advice today. And I know that we are running up on time, and also that we didn't get to everyone's questions, but we appreciate everyone for joining us today for this hour, and to definitely reach out to the Alumni Career Center because they can definitely help continue to answer questions. I believe it's linked in the chat. And we're so excited that the Alumni Association can continue to support the career search. And again, thank you all for joining us today. And another huge thank you to you, Gavon, Elizabeth, and Annika. And if you have a moment to fill out the post-event survey, your feedback would be greatly appreciated. And it's linked in the comments. Have a great day, everyone. Stay safe, stay stalwart, and go Rams.